Once more, welcome on the EURSAX Congress in Trento, and where we are all, let's say, literally a warm welcome. And the warm welcome embraces us probably until the end of the Congress. So how beautiful it could be. The continuous source of inspiration, that is a phrase what I put and paste quite fast when I was thinking on Bach. Who is Bach? Bach matters. It doesn't make sense to listen to Bach or even to study. And the main thing is actually the moment, and I think for a lot of people who has their devotion to Bach, the moment they hear the name Bach, they are always very attractive, because it was a continuous source of inspiration, let's say, from classic or even before the classic. Before it's a little bit difficult, let's say directly after Bach. Until now, actually, when we know that Lady Gaga is using the Symphony partita that she is playing it, she played it just in the right tempo. But then on her recording it's 6 times faster. And well, but we have even more convenient pop musicians. For instance, let's start with the Beatles, McCartney, of course, hard rock. Well, I have some examples for that. And for me, it was always how can we produce ourselves and keep on studying Bach, and what is the main goal actually? The main goal should be actually in all music is not that it is only for Bach, but I think the main goal of making music or art in general is the transmission, the overhanding of emotions. And while using Bach or while using Verdi or while using even Beethoven, there is no difference, of course. But before I go on, I'm going to play a little introduction for you, and I'm going to use it later also as an example. It's from the partita of the first cello suite. And then you see a little drum, a little bit my history, why I'm playing saxophone, or why I'm playing baritone maybe. It's all on the cartoon. So now I go to my assistant, Sarah Pais, and she can put on the first. Timing was more or less together, no? Well, that is not the most important story. What is my, let's see what I have. Yeah, it's not the important story, my story, of course, but it's a nice start. And it's all written in the coming book, what will be probably at the end of year launched. Is it all Bach or was it the world? What created us all together is Bach. But that's for later. So, I'm going to start with Mozart, because Bach was actually a not common composer anymore. That's why Mendelssohn wrote later piano accompaniments for the partita, or Schubert actually, for the Johann Sebastian cello suites. But once Mozart, he went to a choir, and he heard a motet singing Der Geist hilft unseren, I forget the title, Der Geist. So before even the choir was finishing, and he stood up and he shouted out, "This is finally something we can learn from." And it changed his life. Well, we're going to listen to that little part of Der Geist hilft unseren. Now I forget what, but you're going to hear it. When I saw this, we have that it came really immediately in my head. And it was not only Bach, Mozart, that changed, that learned from Bach, but Bach changed also the world of, let's say, Beethoven. At least, I think all the biggest composers, they follow Bach actually, they studied it. And, well, what is the most beautiful part of Bach is, of course, the linear polyphony. But before that, what was coming also in that time already, and before, even already in the Renaissance, so it was really before the Baroque, when you see Beethoven, the heroic part of music, let's say his symphony, or even his piano concerto, the fourth, when you listen to this, then you hear a melody, and of course, what Beethoven is using the harmonies as well. But now I'm very dangerous what I'm going to say. If you love Beethoven, don't get pissed, of course, but he is using fillers, Beethoven, a lot. So you clearly see the solo, and you clearly see the accompaniment. And of course, wonderful, by the way. Beethoven is Beethoven. It's not even allowed to criticize it. But that makes the biggest difference. And actually, Beethoven learned a lot also from Bach. And that we can see in his in the piano sonatas. It's so clear as it is. But when we see other composers, and there are a myriad of composers actually, they tried to not even to imitate it, but it became so difficult. Actually, there came a time that there was, the composers put their feet, their heels in the sand. They were a little bit because they didn't get it. They became too the complexity. They saw it complex, and well, then there were of course the pop musicians later, and when we see those pop musicians, even Paul McCartney, because once they asked me what is Bach, and it was in the interview what he gave for a few years ago actually. Then he said, well, is that typical sing, and he was using the word sing, the typical sing, that is the connection between the melody and the bass line. When I hear this was an interview directly from the Abbey Road studio. You still can go to the internet, Paul McCartney, Abbey Road studio, there it is. And well, so I'm listening 2 times, and then what did he say? The typical sing. Wow, how beautiful, how simple he could say it actually. So I wrote it down, the typical sing. And actually, what he said very clearly, the polyphony. Yeah, and then later on he wrote Blackbird, and but the thing was, and he had together with George Harrison guitar lessons from the same teacher in Liverpool. But yeah, he was not so handy. Reading notes, forget it of course, but he did by ear. So here, ta 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 ta, and that's that. It's the. I mean, you have to listen more. But he was mixing up the rhythm, of course. But he kept trying to put actually the bass line, and on top of that, actually a duo on one guitar. Well, I think just for guitar, it's already difficult to play polyphonic on the guitar. Anyway, how, let's give a little example how the pop music using the really literally something from Bach. I'm going to listen to, for sure, who knows Purple Heart, a white shade of pale, of course. Our generation! Over the 60s, of course. Look, when you hear Purple Heart, I was 10, 9, 11 years old, but my brother was studying with Gustav Legenhardt, Baroque, Clavecembalo. So my other brother was playing the flute, and he was actually already at that time long hair. He was the pop musician of the family. So he came, and I was 9, and so he was 12 or 30. So he came with the little, it's not the big one, but the small one, because he had the little single from Purple Heart, a whiter shade of pale. And then it's Bach, it's the air of Bach. Listen to it. Purple Heart, a whiter shade of pale. Because why I don't do it now? Because I want to show another song from Bach, which is Paul Simon, American tune, that is based on O Secret Head Now Wounded, from Johann Sebastian Bach, from the Matthew Passion. My assistant. Now we're going to hear Paul Simon, from Simon and Garfunkel. I think, who knows Paul Simon? The generation has to go up a little bit, Pavel. You know Paul Simon?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Maybe. Well, what he did literally, he took the song from Johann Sebastian Bach, literally, and it became a huge hit in the United States of America. Maybe that's the reason why I love the United States of America. Who knows? And I was listening, you were listening as well, And then I realized I forgot to finalize the phrase about my older brother. Because when you heard Purple Haren, you can't imagine in our little house there was really, let's say, not a war of course, but we had quite some words that went over the table. Because he was really very pretentious studying the clavecin, and another brother came with Bach, the air, but then really in a pop scene. And I was between, so I say nothing. But I found my way, I can tell you. So this is really, it's beautiful. I have to tell, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Paul Simon, The Essential.
Many's the time I've been mistaken, and many times confused. Yes, and often felt forsaken, and certainly misused. Oh, but I'm alright, I'm alright, just leave to my bones. Still don't expect to look like anymore, so far away from home, so far away from home.
Thank you, sir. Well, I can. Wonderful. You're from America?
Yeah.
Did you know that song?
I've heard it, but many years ago. My
Yeah.
father was a big fan of Paul Simon, so we heard it at the home a lot when I was a kid.
You see? It's, yeah. And now you can sing so far away
Yeah.
from home.
Yeah.
And the text, the lyrics is fantastic, because that Paul Simon did. Actually, he stayed very close to the song from Johann Sebastian Bach, based on "O how bedeckt mit Blut und Wunden." He had wounded with blood and the thing on the head. When he was on Pilatus, he justified him and he became crucified after that. So he was wounded, of course. And it's about what Paul Simon did in the text is also the heart wounded when you go far away. But the heart, they take it also with you. And that what God also did. That is for later. Yeah, let's move on because time is running low. So, when we go a little bit further about who is using the Johann Sebastian Bach as a basis, Elvis Presley, you name it, they all did it. And actually, I'm using it as well, and we are using it as well for our purpose, because actually we are all immigrants. The moment I feel sometimes an immigrant when I play Johann Sebastian Bach on the baritone. And immigrant is not negative, it's just a realization from what are you doing on that moment. The moment you play music from another composer, what was not mentioned to be, you can say, yeah, I played on a non-period instrument, what I said in the past. No, I played something what was not mentioned to be even. So, I'm not born there, I'm not born in the time of Bach, I'm not born even by are educated by another instrument, and it's the same when you, well, I'm also an immigrant in Portugal. I came from Holland, so I compare that. And an immigrant, yeah, you just have to go to another country and accept the morale, and accept the habit, accept the gastronomia, accept all the beautiful things, and without justification and moralization. I have to tell this, I'm not a priest, but for me it's the worst which you can do is moralize the others and put your own moral on top of your head. And I'm going to tell you why I did it, and that we shouldn't do that. Because when you let, and by the way, and the language, of course, you have to adapt the language. Or not, sometimes the language is not even the most important issue. More important is all the things beyond that. And why? The moment I realized studying Bach, and I came from the Bach family, and of course, everybody was studying Bach. And then I came with the saxophone after my clarinet studies. You can imagine the reaction of my parents. That was not fun. Actually, it was forbidden. There came no saxophone in the house. Cello, choir, that was a choir, of course. And more and more, thank you. More and more I started to realize what he did, because yeah, you have to see it in that time, of course. And they saw this as an immigrant in the house. The moment I came to studies at Bogart, and then I just told him, I'm going to play baritone saxophone. Oh, you have to buy the cello suite. Wow, I was back home again. But then I realized what to do. And it's adapting yourself, playing Bach. It's adapting, and you don't need to imitate nothing, and you don't need to find out the wheel. You don't need to do something special. Just make a study as a cello player or a flute player or whatever. What Paul Simon is doing, we can judge it and put our morality there. No, we have to listen what he's doing, how he did it. Well, he is an immigrant as well, of course. He's using it, and with a beautiful purpose. I mean, just reading the text from Bach original and just reading the text from Paul Simon, and also from Procol Harum. When you listen to this, it's wonderful, and there is tons of examples, of course. And now we are going back to the Beatles, because they are using not only Bach but other composers. Once in I have the date, I look for the date even. I already lost the papers, of course, you can understand this. And it doesn't matter, it was I think in the 60s, of course, generation. So, let's say 65 more or less. He was watching television, and he heard the Brandenburg Concerto, number 2. And he heard the trumpet player, Christoph Mason, and he lived from 1926 to 2011. So he was quite a strong trumpet player. And as you know, the second part of the second Brandenburg Concerto until now, it's beautiful, really beautiful concerto, but it's almost a trumpet concert, because what Bach did, first of all, he put there a trumpet that's so incredibly difficult that nowadays, when a conductor is putting this on the program for the whole week, probably the orchestra would say no, or the trumpet player, no, you have to find another trumpet player, because it's incredibly difficult. So McCartney heard this. The next day, and that was on the 17th of January, later, after the I'm finished, you can ask me the date, the year, because I looked for it. And, but I know it was on the 17th of January. He went to the studio, Abbey Road, and there was George, the producer of the Beatles, George, I have to know this, I'm sorry. Forget it. George! Oh, come on, he just passed away for a few years ago. Paul, can you go to the... My new assistant, Paul, I should do the same as with Sommer, a sort of... that I will do the next time, a sort of quiz.
Harry Martin.
Huh?
George Martin.
George Martin. Yeah. 3 points, Paul. 3 points. George Martin, of course. And he heard McCartney, he said, man, what? So it was, they had really a discussion, and so they start to invite him. A few days later, Mr. Mason went to the studio, and George Harrison was, he couldn't write notes, so he was doing with the pen, he up and down, and then they reading it, and well, there came out the most beautiful, the penny lane, and that was unbelievable strong. Later on, because now we're coming back, why he chose Penny Lane and why the polyphony, actually, why that was so important. I go a little step back to understand what is then so special, why pop musicians, we, contemporary music, Kurtak, you name it, everybody is using Bach. I think we have, there is not a file between us, okay. So, you have to imagine a three-dimensional object, you can draw it, and then you have to film it on a flat screen. So it became two-dimensional. It's clear? So you draw a quadro. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Why I didn't put it there? It's not there again. Okay, I put it out. Okay. So, now I have a problem, and then you put those lines like this, you know, for to create 3 dimensions. I think you already. So, and then suddenly one line is passing the other line, because you make it 2-dimensional. For to create perspective on a flat screen, so the lines are crossing each other. And that is the most beautiful point, the crossing of those lines. So we have to think about, there is one line going here, so for instance here, and the other line is going here. But yeah, actually that line goes on, of course. So one line has to stop for to give space to that line, and it goes on here. And later that line, because it's here maybe, that line has to stop for that line. So it's a very complexity of polyphony of creating perspective in art, creating perspective in a painting. For instance, a little example. What I just played the cello suite of Bach. So you have actually 3 lines. And then you can activate different lines. You can sing. Beethoven, for instance, the main value is the melody. Not always, but yeah, where is the melody? That is in front actually. And that makes it totally big difference. Now, we go back now to George Harrison, Paul McCartney, and that is based on an expression of Anna Belsma. He created the book, is one of those, let's say, the 70s initiator of let's say, bringing Bach back on stage, what Mendelssohn also did in 1868. Because what he said, there's always a bass in the listener, always. And I think Paul McCartney, and because he was a bass player, I think you know this, huh? He was a left-handed bass player. So he played the bass like this. Very special. Anyway, and I played the baritone. I realize it now actually. Who knows, there is some connection. Who knows? But when we're going to hear, and then you have to sing this with a note. So. So from that point on, you have to sing. And just at the end, and you will, I don't go to that, but you will hear when you have to change to the tonality. And this is a secret of Bach. He's using that organ point from the beginning to the end. The complete half of the whole prelude. And it is, when I started also in television, when I was giving a lecture in Harvard, and actually at the same time I was living in New York, and yeah, I don't know why I went, but I saw it later, so it's the same. But wow, I was really impressed again because, and this was on the cello, and he had one cello missing, but on the cello you can do really those two things. So then later he asked another cello player to play that note. I'm going to ask it to the piano. It's even better. So you have to sing. With forte. Usually I don't conduct, but who wish to late will not pass the test. Okay, beautiful, Bach. It's in my coda. I will explain a little bit more. You can see today, Johann Sebastian Bach. Well, that is also something incredible. Of course, I just talked already about Penny Lane. You're going to hear. There is Penny Lane, no? Yeah. Okay. There's the later. I should study this better. Next time I will do even better. First of all, we just going to listen to the beautiful Brown Concerto number 2. Now we're going to hear the Beatles with Penny Lane, and then you're going to hear the same trumpet player, not the same here of course, but I couldn't find it actually, and I was looking to a recording from Mason in that time. So when, this is a little bit, so when you go to the internet or you have nothing to do in the train, whatever, look for Mason. It's more or less, it should be, yeah, I think in the 50s or the 60s, in the 60s of course. Look for, maybe it is a recording, who knows, I can find it. Anyway, now you're going to hear the same trumpet player, Mason, because it was not only that they heard it, no, they invited him to come and to play the notes Paul McCartney invented with imagination, with fantasy. There we go, Penny Lane.
Any lane there's a fire, but an hourglass, and in his pocket the portrait of the Queen. He likes to keep his fire engine clean. It's a clean machine.
There it is! There it is. Well, I just explained it. You see, the three-dimensional. This is a 3D drawing, but projected on a flat screen. So it became 2D. And then you see the lines, and in one line you have to give space. This is also one more, and that is one more, of course. But I use that one because it's really beautiful from Da Vinci. And they make a lot of drawing when you go to Da Vinci and the Divine Proportion, so the divine proportions actually is not. It's really a whole bunch of drawings, and you can see the clean, of course. And then you can talk about shadow. You can talk about so many other things. But this is a simple, let's say, a simple, and you see that perspective. This is, for instance, a very simple polyphonic composition. This is, let's say, Brandenburg Concerto, with more people, and you can make it as complicated as well. But it's just, let's say, a myriad of different voices, all independent, all with the same importance, creating all together a wonderful composition. Okay, so now we go immediately to the next. Yes, because this is something, a beautiful moment always, that is coming from the Matthew Passion from Johann Sebastian Bach. Because he was also, besides an harmonic genius, he was also a genius in adapting, of course, he had the man making all, for instance, the Matthew Passion, all the words, of course. But yet he had something in his mind for how I can give the right notes to the text is in front of me. And of course, that symbiotic way of creating a composition is, when you find that imbalance, the symbiosis between the two, it's genius. I just want to play for you a little phrase from Johann Sebastian Bach, one of my favorite parts at Paramedic. Mein Gott, um meine Seelen sieht my soul. My dear assistants, the Bach Festival of Pragas, We are going to the end, of course, and to the grand finale. And the grand finale is, of course, Marsamu. What had Marsamu to do on those moments with Bach? Well, who knows already something about this? Well, you know it all. I don't even. Okay, you don't. Okay. But anyway, the Brahms Festival. In 1950, there was an opening of the festival, and as you all could hear, the trumpet part is quite complicated. So not for some unplayable. Actually, for the most of them. You have also to know, the rumor is, that's not the rumor, it's true. How do you call it? The trumpet player was actually the son-in-law from the second wife of Johann Sebastian Bach. The first wife was Barbara, and the second wife was Maria Magdalena. Maria Magdalena. I'll always mix up with the Bible. You have to know that Bach was needing, because he was singing in his choir, a very talented soprano, and there was a huge difference of age, of course, and Bach had, let's say, quite a lot of children produced already, and they were all still in the house. So, you can imagine a father who sees, in that time, a composer, that was already, and he was not a star as composition like Handel, for instance, who went to Hamburg, he had a lot of success. Bach, he wanted to stay from what he did actually. And, so commercially he was not number one, that is clear. And then seeing the father from his wife, a lot of children, the talent is going. So, I don't know what kind of discussion he had, but Bach was conducting, and he was making this, and he wrote that part for actually his father-in-law. I made a big mistake, it was quite young, his father-in-law. So, our Bach, you see the picture? Yeah, you can laugh about it. Okay, anyway, knowing that little story, how difficult it is, there was the opening of the Prados Festival, and I saw many trumpet players. The trumpet player gave up. No, I can't play it, it's forget it. So, Pablo Casals was a big friend of Marcel. So, he called him, can you come? Because I'm missing the trumpet player and you have to play the trumpet part. Bach took the train, of course, he went to Spain. And on the first rehearsal, when Casals was conducting, the first thing he said, "Bravo, monsieur!" It's written, and we're going to listen now to the Bach Festival of the Brahms Quartet again, and now played by the trumpet part, played by our, let's say, grandfather, Marcel Müller. I had a little phrase this morning. I put it a little bit in the paper where it is. Yes. Because what happens now in the world is not so funny, of course. It's far from funny, and thanks God, from the heart, thanks God that we are here safe in a beautiful city and having the privilege of doing this festival, listening to each other, enjoying each other, meeting friends, meeting or getting ideas, of course, listening to so many music or inspired by Bach. We can say everybody's inspired by Bach. Even Video, by the way, big fan. Luciano Video. We are in the land of Video, of course. And then, yeah, let me say it like this. For us, it was a complete gesture in finding, when we listen to Bach, I think it's the most beautiful music. It's a message with an utter complete gesture in finding our inner and outer peace that we would and need so utterly and so drastically at the moment. Just listen to the music, or any music, of course, but for me, or for anyone, can also Bach, or any music, what is your favorite, and that can be whatever it is. Look for that, and look for beauty, listen to beauty, and when you don't hear it, listen again, and when you don't see it, look again. This is what Bach told us, and that's why when he went back, what he said to his wife, because his wife, of course, was sad, and then he said to me, "Don't cry for me, I go to where the music is going." Inner peace and outer peace. That is our goal. This is my goal to transmit to you all. And we make mistakes more than we can imagine. Non-stop. Don't avoid mistakes, because that's a step forward. Thank you. Can be a good teacher when he doesn't have the right partners surrounding with him. Actually, not only me, but so many other teachers. And I'm not the only one who's doing this, but I want to have a special applause for Eugenio, who that's it. We have questions, of course. First of all, think about it. If it is too complicated, so don't ask.